today we're going to start our Marquetry assignment, and to do that you're going to go into the location that I tell you in class, but you're going to open up this template. What I've done with this template is created the borders that we're going to need for the Marquetry class and the borders we need for beginning woods. Over here the layers are set up. The blue layer on our laser does a partial cut. The red layer does a full cut. The green is where we create our regions or our puzzle pieces, and then our original drawing is in pink. The black here is the sizes, and those are set up so that they don't print. So what you're going to want to do first now is go find your artwork that you want to trace. So if you go ahead and find your artwork, there's two ways to be able to put this in. The first way, and the easiest, is to type in picture. Then you're just going to go find it. I found this wolf picture online. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to put it in one of my 5x7s, and I'm just going to scale it and click there. The downside to this is it's active. You can always lock it, and then it's not active anymore. The other way is view, background, bitmap place. There's the same image, and I will put it in there. The benefit to this is it's already in the background, and it will not move. To get rid of the grid like I just did, it's an F7. So these are both from bitmaps. The other way you could put something in is if we did a import. I'm going to import the same wolf picture. This has already been traced. So if I open this up, this has already been vectorized. So we don't have to do any tracing on this. It comes in ready to go. Okay. From here, we're going to start to do some of the tracing. All right, tracing. We're going to want to be in the original drawing layer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go through and trace this image. I did a blow up of some of the commands you might use. This is one you're going to use the most. This is going to give us a nice controlled line. If you want sharp corners, you're going to use this one. Anytime you want to do a circle that's exact here, a ellipse or oval, and a rectangle. So I'm going to start with the control points. I'm going to select this. I'm going to zoom in. I typically don't start on the end. I'm going to start here on the edge, and I'm just going to go around and start tracing this. I'm not spending a ton of time. I'm just trying to get it to look like the image. If you do have a sharp corner, I try to use a 3-point click, and we're going to be coming to one down here. So as I get to it, I'm going to go click, click, and back. That's going to give me a sharp corner to reference off. Same thing, 1, 2, 3. Let's say I mess up and put one over here. I can just go U space for undo. If you have more than one that you need to do, you can do that as well. But I'm just going to continue to trace this all the way around. And I'm just left clicking all the way around this object. Even if you place a point, we can always come back and move it. So don't get too worried that you might have gotten something wrong. We can always make an adjustment later on after we complete this first loop. And I'm really trying to avoid thin spots. So like this thin spot, I'm just going to make this a continuation onto this one. It'll make things easier. Really thin stuff does not work out because it makes the pieces of wood or the veneer very breakable. Alright, so I can see this one messed up, so I'm going to go U and pull it back. What happened was the object snap tried to jump it to a location. 3. 1, 2, 3. And typically I try to stay thickness wise above 1/8 of an inch. Otherwise you get into some issues where it's just too fragile and you can't get it to cut. We can also do a blue layer, and I will show you what that is later on, but right now all I'm doing is tracing this so that we can move on to our next step. Now, if you have already vectorized it, or you found one that has already been vectorized, you get to skip all of this step. But being able to trace does give you a greater variety of options when it comes to what you want to draw. Alright, so I'm going to come up here and we'll go to the end, and there's my first trace. I'm going to come back and I'm going to trace this here off camera. I just finished tracing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm going to see if there's anything that I want to clean up or to get it to look just a little bit different. To get these nodes to pop up, I hit F10. Once they're up, you can move them individually and you can kind of see how it's going to change the look. You can add nodes, you can remove nodes. All I'm doing though is just trying to get the look that I'm going for, and once I'm happy with that, I'm ready to go to the next step. So it's all been traced, it's all as close as I want to get, so now I can go to sizing it the final size as well as doing the background. Everything's been traced, everything's been cleaned up. Now what I need to do is scale it for the final time. I want to center it up and I want to make it a little bit bigger in this space. So this has been locked, so I'm going to right click on that. I can now take that, and I'm not going to delete it in case I need it later on, but I'm going to turn it off. I'm now going to highlight the wolf with gumball on. If your gumball does not turn on, you can come down here and select that. I'm going to scale it. I'm going to hit the midpoint, and I'm just going to eyeball it here. So now I have it centered where I want. Now I need to break up the background. The background needs to be busted up because we don't have veneer big enough, and it looks better if there is some sort of break in the background. The only things I don't allow you guys to do is exactly horizontal or vertical lines. You can break it up in different patterns, but don't just do horizontal or vertical lines. So I'm going to take control point, and I'm just going to make a squiggly line. And I'm just going to put a few of those on there. Like that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and trim this off the outside as well as off inside the object itself. So I'm going to pick trim, which is over here. I'm going to highlight everything, right click, and now I'm going to left click on everything that needs to disappear. Zoom in. Anything that goes over the object as well needs to be cut out. Now I'm going to look at some cleaning up the small parts. That's very small. I'm going to clean that out. That one should be okay, and this one down here, I'm going to clean that out. You really can't tell that it's been cleaned, but it will make a difference when you go to start creating your regions. Now our tracing is done, our background has been divided up. What we're going to need to do is turn these into pieces, because right now all they are is polylines. What we'll do first is we're going to come down here and we're going to change into our regions. We come up to the top and we type in CB, and then we're going to select curve boolean. It tells us to select our curves. What we want to do is where it says combine regions, click that so it says no. Now I'm going to select everything. I'm done selecting, so I right click. Now it says click inside the regions you want to keep. I typically do color by color. In this case, I'm only going to use 2 colors, so I'm going to do the object first. So I click in here, I come over here, I click in there. I'm done with the object, so I'm going to right click and I'm going to move it off of the drawing. That gives me now, instead of just curves, it gives me regions. Now what I'm going to do is repeat the same thing with a right click, or you can go up and go curve boolean again, or CB. It should remember no. I'm going to highlight this. Now I'm going to pick all the background pieces. So first I'll pick the obvious ones. Now I need to come in and get the ones that are not as obvious. Inside of that, inside there, and there. So I believe I got all those. I'm going to right click or enter, and I'm going to move these pieces off. Now from here, what I want to do is I want to separate them. So if I click it, there's nothing inside that, so it's okay to move it. I'm going to go to the next one. There's nothing inside that. I'm looking to see if there's possibly something on the inside that I have to move, and if you don't move it with it, you're going to need to put a hole, but you won't have a spot for it. Let's try that. Come on. There we go. I'll move this down, move that down, nothing inside that. Alright, so I have separated all of these. This design didn't have anything inside it, so those are already separated. So I have created a region. Now we're ready to do the offset, which is the cut layer. So I'm going to click down here on the colors or layers, and I'm going to pick the cut file or the red. Up here in the command, I'm going to type in offset. The distance is 0.0025. Now I'm ready to start offsetting. It tells us to select the curve. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the background first. So I select it, and then it says the side to offset. What we're doing with the offset is trying to account for the material that is burned away from the laser. So just like cutting something on the table saw, you end up with sawdust. Now we're going to create a 0.0025 offset out. That will allow us to account for the 0.005 or 5/1000ths of an inch laser that gets burned away. So I go outside. Every piece has an outside. There are a few pieces that go in, but for the most part, you're just going out. And I get in the pattern of left, right, left, and that's my clicking. Left, right, left, and it'll go pretty quick. You'll get frustrated early on, but once you figure out the pattern, doing this doesn't take any time at all. So I went through and did my background pieces. Now I'm going to do the object and this object. And if I want to make sure I have them all, what I can do is I can turn my green off and make sure everything is there. Alright, now there's some situations where you're going to have to do an offset in. So I created a shape here. This shape is going to fit in that. So when we do our offset, the outsides are always out, so both of those go out, but now there's something inside it, now it goes in. So outsides go out, insides go in. Then you're ready to go ahead and turn your green off, and we're ready to start putting in our pieces of wood that we're going to use. Alright, now what we're ready to do is put in our pieces of wood and rearrange our pieces that we're going to cut out. You notice so far I haven't deleted anything. That's really important in case you miss something or it gets miscut. You always want to go back to it. Pink or green, turn the layers off, but don't delete anything. So we're going to pick a rectangle over here, and this is what we need to be aware of. R and whatever the width and height, height is in inches. And we want to make sure that we don't get things too tight in it, so we subtract 1/4 of an inch. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to pick rectangle, pick any point you want. I'm going to pick right here. The first piece of wood I have is 8 by 6. So instead of 8, I'm going to go R 7.75, comma, instead of 6, I'm going to go 5.75. The R is relative to wherever I start. So there is my first piece of wood. I'm going to do the next piece of wood, and it is 3 by 5. So I'm going to go R 2.75, comma 4.75. We'd rather waste a little bit of wood from moving it rather than trying to get it too tight and have to recut the whole thing. So I have my pieces of wood in here, and it doesn't matter if you have them vertical or horizontal. You just have to remember that when you go to the laser. So now looking at these, this one I have a lot of options, this one I don't have a lot of options. So this might not be a piece of wood that I can use. You don't necessarily know that till you put it in here and look at the pieces that you're working with. So I already know it's not going to work. I'm going to use a little bit bigger one. So I'm just going to scale it. You're going to actually go through and measure it. But to make this go, we're just going to make it bigger. So first off, I'm going to take this and I'm going to select one item and I'm going to move it in here. It's a little bit too big as it is, so I can do a rotate. Put that in there. I know I have one more piece. I can select that. I can move that into here, reduce any waste. So this would be ready to go for one color. Now I'm ready to move this stuff. I'm going to move a couple of these at a time. So I just move this in. I want to get things grouped. Take the time to do this. It reduces our waste and allows us to make our veneer go a lot farther. I typically put in the bigger pieces first and then fill it in with all the little ones. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off screen and bring you back in here in a second. I finished up placing these, and what you notice is, based on this, I was not able to get that last piece, so I went and found another piece of wood, and I drew the rectangle same way that I did before, placed it here. So now I'm ready to start to cut. So once you become ready to cut, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn those off. I'm not going to delete them, but I'm going to turn them off, and I'm going to export this. So I highlight everything and I go File, Export Selected. In our case, we have a shared folder that we're going to go to. I'm just going to put this into my demo file here, but you guys will go to the Mr. Warby file here in a second. But all you need to do is just name it whatever you want. These are all temporary files. They are not saved. But once you have that, you'll be able to save it to the computer and then cut it out from the laser cutter.